The engagement hall was filled with music, bright lights, and smiling faces. Everyone believed it would be a perfect family celebration. No one knew that before the night ended, one terrible moment would change many lives forever. Emma stood quietly near the back of the room. She gently rested one hand on her 8-month pregnant belly. She tried to smile, but deep inside, she felt nervous. Her husband, Daniel, was still on his way after finishing an important meeting. He had promised he would arrive soon. Emma hoped this evening would be different. She wanted peace with her family, even after years of pain. But her father barely looked at her. Her mother stayed busy praising her younger brother, Ryan, whose engagement was being celebrated. Emma felt like a stranger inside her own family. As the guests laughed and took pictures, Emma walked toward the refreshment table to get a glass of water. Suddenly, Ryan shouted, "Where's the engagement ring?" The room became silent. Ryan looked directly at Emma. "You were standing here," he said loudly. "Did you take it?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't touch anything," she answered softly. Her father did not wait for another word. His face turned red with anger. He walked across the room and pushed Emma with both hands. She lost her balance. Her pregnant belly slammed hard against the sharp edge of a wooden table. A loud crash echoed through the hall. Emma fell to the floor, holding her stomach in pain. The guests froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Then the front doors slowly opened. Daniel stepped inside. He looked at his wife lying on the floor. Then he slowly raised his eyes toward Emma's father. The silence inside the hall became even heavier. No one was ready for what Daniel would do next. The hall was completely silent. Daniel did not shout. He did not run toward Emma's father. Instead, he dropped to his knees beside Emma and gently held her hand. "Stay with me," he whispered. Emma was crying. One hand covered her stomach, while the other held Daniel's arm tightly. A guest quickly called an ambulance. Emma's father crossed his arms and said, "She fell by herself. Don't blame me." Ryan nodded. "Dad didn't do anything. She just lost her balance." Several relatives agreed, hoping the embarrassing scene would disappear. Daniel looked at each of them without saying a word. When the paramedics arrived, they carefully placed Emma on a stretcher. Before they closed the ambulance door, Daniel noticed something unusual. A young photographer standing near the stage looked frightened. He quietly walked over and handed Daniel a small memory card. I recorded everything," the photographer whispered. The camera never stopped. Daniel carefully placed a memory card into his pocket. Minutes later, another surprise came. An elderly waitress slowly approached him. "I've worked for this family for many years," she said quietly. "Your wife didn't deserve this." She slipped a folded envelope into Daniel's hand. "Open it after you reach the hospital." Before Daniel could ask another question, she walked away. Inside the ambulance, doctors examined Emma while checking the baby's heartbeat. Daniel held her hand and tried to stay calm, but his heart was racing. He looked at the sealed envelope. Then he looked at the memory card in his pocket. He realized this was no longer just about one violent push. Someone had been hiding the truth for years. And whatever was inside that envelope was about to change everything. The ambulance reached the hospital within minutes. Doctors rushed Emma into the emergency room while Daniel waited outside. Every second felt like an hour. He kept looking at the red emergency light above the door, praying for both Emma and their baby. Finally, he remembered the envelope. He carefully opened it. Inside was a flash drive and a short handwritten note. It said, "Your wife has been telling the truth for years. This is only one part of what her family has done. Don't let them hide it again." Daniel's hands became still. He borrowed a laptop in the hospital waiting room and plugged in the flash drive. Several old video files appeared on the screen. The first video showed Emma's father screaming at her during a family dinner years earlier. Another showed Ryan laughing while Emma's mother blamed her for something she had never done. The final video shocked Daniel the most. It had been recorded just before the engagement party. Emma's father looked directly at Ryan and said, "If she causes even one small problem tonight, I'll throw her out myself. I don't care if she's pregnant." Ryan simply smiled. Daniel closed the laptop slowly. Now he understood. The push at the engagement was not an accident. It was a result of years of cruelty. Just then, the doctor walked out of the emergency room. "Your wife is stable," she said gently. "Your baby is alive, but Emma must avoid any more stress." Daniel thanked her with relief. At that same moment, his phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "I was there that night. I saw everything. If you want the whole truth, meet me tomorrow morning. Come alone." Daniel stared at the message. Someone else had been watching, and they knew secrets the family had never wanted anyone to hear. The next morning, Daniel left the hospital before sunrise. Emma was resting, and the doctor said she and the baby needed quiet. Before leaving, he kissed her forehead and promised, "I will protect both of you." The message had asked him to come alone. It led him to a small coffee shop across town. In the far corner sat an older woman wearing a gray coat. She looked nervous. As Daniel walked closer, she slid a small folder across the table. "My name is Linda," she said softly. "I worked as your wife's father's assistant for 12 years. Daniel opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, bank records, and handwritten notes. Linda took a deep breath. "Emma was never treated like the other child," she said. "Her father believed only Ryan deserved the family business. He wanted Emma to leave the family forever." Daniel listened carefully. Linda continued. "The engagement party was planned for months. But after Emma said she would attend, your father-in-law became angry. He said she would ruin Ryan's perfect day." Then Linda showed Daniel something even worse. She handed him a copy of a text message sent the night before the engagement. It read, "If Emma embarrasses his family tomorrow, I'll make sure she never comes back again." The message had been sent from Emma's father's phone. Daniel felt his hands tighten. This was no longer just a family argument. It showed intent. Before Linda stood up, she whispered one final sentence. "There's one more witness, but he's afraid." Daniel looked at her. "Who?" She answered quietly, "The hotel security manager." Just then, Daniel's phone rang. The caller ID showed Emma's mother. When he answered, all he heard was a frightened voice. "Please, tell the police to come. Your father-in-law is destroying the evidence." Daniel drove to the engagement hall as fast as he could. When he arrived, 2 police cars were already outside. Several employees stood near the entrance, watching in silence. Inside, Emma's father was pulling boxes from a storage room. He looked angry. Papers were scattered across the floor, and a small metal trash can was filled with burning documents. A police officer stepped forward. "Sir, move away from the fire." Emma's father tried to smile. "I'm only cleaning old files." But the officer noticed a damaged security recorder lying beside the trash can. Before anyone could touch it, the hotel security manager walked into the room. His hands were shaking. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore," he said. He handed the officer a sealed hard drive. "I made a backup before anyone touched the cameras." Emma's father suddenly turned pale. The officer connected the hard drive to a computer in the hotel office. The video appeared on the screen. It clearly showed Emma standing peacefully near the refreshment table. Then Ryan whispered something into his father's ear. Without warning, Emma's father rushed forward and shoved her with both hands. The room became completely silent. There was no accident. There was no misunderstanding. Everything had been recorded. One officer looked directly at Emma's father. "Sir, you are under investigation for assault." As the officers escorted him outside, reporters who had heard about the incident gathered near the entrance. Cameras flashed from every direction. Emma's father lowered his head for the first time in his life. Back at the hospital, Daniel watched the news on a television in Emma's room. Emma quietly squeezed his hand. But before either of them could speak, Daniel's phone rang again. It was their lawyer. His voice sounded serious. "The video is only the beginning," he said. "We've just discovered something that could destroy your father-in-law's entire business." 3 months later, the courtroom was full. Family member reporters and neighbors waited quietly as the judge entered. Emma sat beside Daniel, gently holding their newborn baby. Looking at her child gave her the strength she had never felt before. The prosecutor played the hotel security video one final time. No one in the courtroom spoke. The judge then listened to every witness. The photographer described what he had recorded. The waitress told the court about the envelope she had protected for years. Linda explained how Emma had been treated since childhood. Even the hotel security manager confirmed that someone had tried to destroy the evidence. Emma's father had no answers left. Ryan lowered his head. For the first time, he admitted that he had stayed silent because he wanted to protect his father instead of his sister. The judge finally gave a decision. Emma's father was found responsible for the assault. He also faced additional charges for attempting to destroy evidence. His business partners ended their contracts, and his reputation disappeared almost overnight. When the hearing ended, Emma did not celebrate. She simply stood up, smiled at Daniel, and walked away. Outside the courthouse, Daniel looked at her and asked, "Do you regret anything?" Emma looked down at her sleeping baby and smiled softly. "I regret believing that people would change without choosing to change," she answered. "But I don't regret walking away." Months later, Emma and Daniel moved into a quiet home surrounded by trees. There were no angry voices, no fear, and no painful memories. Their daughter grew up in a house filled with love instead of control. Emma finally understood that revenge was not shouting, fighting, or getting even. The greatest victory was giving her child the peaceful family she had never received herself. And that was something no one could ever take away.